as it is, we know that in Bangladesh today, and that's another reason that Sheikh Hasina must have chosen yesterday, that there's a great upsurge in support for the Awami League. It is today, in fact, the NCP and the BNP, the two parties, the BNP is in the government and NCP, they are fighting with each other on who let Awami League come back in, and they know that Awami League is now back as a political force to be reckoned with, even though there is an executive order banning their participation, but they are back. Their 30-40% vote bank is intact. In addition, there are a lot of people who may not like Sheikh Hasina, but they are pro-liberation war. They are pro-liberation war values. And so that also is a ready-made vote bank. I think this is what has made the government of the day so nervous.
Thanks very much for joining us here, ma'am.
Thank you. Great pleasure to be on your show.
Ambassador Sikri, Sheikh Hasina spoke just last evening in Delhi. In fact, she was quite emotional when she was speaking as well. What does this timing of her interaction suggest to you? Because it was the 2nd anniversary of her ouster.
Yes, the exact date certainly had something to do with this being the 2nd anniversary of her departure from Bangladesh. But I think that she had already announced in an earlier interview to Reuters and some others that she is determined to go back to Bangladesh. And that itself, her announcement about her decision to go back to Bangladesh had itself created already a kind of a frisson of excitement all across, and people were wondering whether she's serious about it or whether she's just saying it as a posture, etc. And so I think Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina took the occasion yesterday to have this more detailed press conference. Actually, I was present there, and I must say that when after a statement, she made the statement, and then a number of people from the audience raised questions. And when she suddenly came on to actually answer the questions herself, then it was quite electrifying, but people never expected that. They thought this is just a recorded statement, and then, her son Sajid Wajid will answer all the questions. But her direct interaction with the audience, very senior journalists from global and national media, they realized that she's very sincere about what she's saying, and her emotion about what had happened to her 2 years ago, her emotions about it, and how, if she's being accused of having killed a number of people, which of course the figure of 1,400 is highly contested, but if she is accused of killing a number of people, she says, I want a complete impartial investigation, because thousands of policemen have also been killed, and the people who killed the policemen have been indemnified by the Yunus regime. So they're not going to be charged at all. It was like they're calling it a battle, So I think this kind of one-sidedness, this is what even Sajid Wajid spoke about. And he also spoke about the question of Pakistan's growing influence in Bangladesh. They're pushing back for the pre-1971 situation to come back into Bangladesh and to be there in full command with the government as their subservient government, as it were. They're trying to embed themselves with the Bangladesh army. They've removed all restrictions on visas, on trade, on connectivity that were there earlier. So it is a very difficult situation, and all the radical extremist groups of the world are today in Bangladesh. Not only the well-known Pakistani ones, Jamaat-ul-Dawa, Lashkar-e-Taiba, but whether it is HUIS, ISIS, everybody's there. And 2 weeks ago, they had this terrifying black flag demonstration, about 15 lakh flags of all these organizations being shown just to intimidate the population. But I think another reason why Sheikh Hasina has now decided to go back is that there is a pushback against all of this. We saw in itself that in the elections in February of this year, when the Jamaat-e-Islami thought they would definitely be coming to power, because they had been in power de facto for the last 18 months, and Mohammed Yunus was just in many ways just their spokesperson or their puppet. But since when they did not come back into power, then there was the result of a backlash against the Jamaat-e-Islami, because particularly by the women, because the women in Bangladesh for the last 18 months and had the most difficult time. They were not being allowed to go to work. If they were going to work unaccompanied, they were asked, why are you going unaccompanied? They wore the teep, the Bengali teep. It was being objected to as being un-Islamic. Any love of music and dance, etc. was being frowned upon. So that actually the women's vote really hit back. And I think that Everybody thought that when Tariq Rahman comes to power, he will make a big change. But in six
Yeah.
months, nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. He hasn't pushed back on a single decision taken by the Yunus government. So the trade that was so prominent and very beneficial for both sides between India
Yes.
and Bangladesh, that has totally collapsed. The Bangladesh export factories, ready-made garments, which depended
Mm.
on the inputs from India, man-made yarn, cotton yarn, textile machinery, all that has collapsed. So the government, the ready-made garment factories in Bangladesh closed down, and hundreds and
So,
thousands of women employed in these factories were out of jobs.
right, so you're saying that there is a lot of truth in what Sheikh Hasina's son is alleging about another Pakistan on our eastern border.
Absolutely, absolutely. And if it's not Pakistan, then it's China, because we've
Mm.
seen it. In fact, it's both Pakistan and China. So it's not one or the other. I think it's both, because we saw that when Tariq Rahman went to China. He had assured India he would come to India first, but of course he changed his mind and went to
Mm.
China, and then came back by signing those two deals with the Mongla port and also the Teesta River Basin development in Bangladesh. Now, both these projects had publicly been given to India by Sheikh Hasina, saying that
Mm.
I'm giving it to India because of their security concerns. And they know that they don't want any other government to have this kind of project because it's very near the sensitive areas. I'm giving it. Now,
Mm.
deliberately knowing this background, Tariq Rahman goes and signs on it with China. Now, can you imagine China wants to take over the Bay of Bengal? They already have a presence in Chittagong because Bangladesh bought two second-hand submarines from
Yes.
China, and then China has built a harbor for these submarines, a base for these submarines in Chittagong. And instead of making space for two submarines, they kept space for
Mm.
eight submarines. So who are these other six? Will they be Pakistani submarines? Will they be Chinese submarines? They're trying
Mm.
to get their full presence in the Bay of Bengal. And Mongla port is not even a day's sailing from Kolkata port, and it
Yes.
is sensitively situated. Now, if they want to be
Mm.
there, there's a Khulna Mongla railway line that India has built, going up to the from Mongla to the Indian border to Khulna, and then very near the Indian border. So all
Mm.
these are matters which are very worrisome. And Tariq Rahman, government of India has shown a great deal of restraint and patience in dealing with Bangladesh ever since the last 2 years. And they had informed Tariq Rahman and earlier Yunus that we are more than happy to continue our good relationship with Bangladesh. We want to
Mm.
continue on the projects, the connectivity, the trade, the investment. And we were looking for a response, but there was no
Right.
response either from Yunus or from Tariq Rahman. I mean,
Mm.
even till today, our High Commissioner there, first of all, he had difficulty in presenting credentials. It took weeks instead of days, and now he had not been able to make his call on Prime Minister Tariq Rahman. Not
Mm.
yet. Prime Minister Tariq Rahman
Yes.
met American Ambassador Sergio Gore over the weekend, but he has not yet found time for High Commissioner Dinesh Trivedi. So
Okay. Yes.
obviously, yeah,
Yes, that's
yeah,
a point. Yeah. But just talking about Sheikh Hasina herself, the fact that she now says that she wants to return and return on her own terms, is there a realistic path, or is that wishful thinking?
in the first place, as you know, there's been a press note put out by the Bangladesh government
Yes.
after this. And in that press note, first of all, if it's addressed to India, it should have been a diplomatic note and not a press
Mm.
note. A press note is for everybody. India does not need to reply in any way. But in the press note, they complain that we asked the Indian government for extradition and they have not done it. But that's a
Mm.
contradiction, because now Sheikh Hasina is saying she wants to go back. So where is the question of the extradition now? She wants to go back, and I think, in my view, there should be a big call for reconciliation. In fact,
Mm.
Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina used that word in her address to the media yesterday. She is ready for reconciliation, and I think that
Mm.
why not? If she wants to go back, she says she wants to appeal the death sentence that has been given against her. She should be allowed to appeal, because the death
Mm.
sentence was given by a court which was not authorized to try her at all. It's been described as a kangaroo court. And so I think that it's very important that she should be allowed this right of appeal, and see what happens. As it is, we know that in Bangladesh today, and that's another reason that Sheikh Hasina must have
Mm.
chosen yesterday, that there's a great upsurge in support for the Awami League. It is today, in fact, the NCP and the BNP, the two parties, the BNP is in the
Mm.
government and NCP, they are fighting with each other on who let Awami League come back in. And they know that Awami League is now back as a political force to be reckoned with, even though there is an executive order banning their participation. But
Mm.
they are back. Their 30 to 40% vote bank is intact. In addition, there are a lot of people who may not like Sheikh Hasina, but they are pro liberation war. They are pro
I see.
liberation war values. And so that also is a ready-made vote bank. I think this is what has made the government of the day so nervous, because that they wonder what is happening. So I think there
Mm.
should be reconciliation, and let banning a political party in a democracy has not gone down well with the people of Bangladesh at all, because the people of Bangladesh want their own right. That if we don't like Awami
Mm.
League, we won't vote for them. So they want to
Mm.
exercise that right of not voting for Awami League if they don't like them. They don't want that right taken away from them. And that is why there is a great deal of unhappiness that this executive
Mm.
order banning the Awami League is there. So for all these reasons, I think it was a well-timed press conference, a well-timed declaration that she wants to go back. She's chosen the month of December, which is the victory
Mm.
month, when Victory Day took place. And I think that all in all, this should not be allowed to happen in a chaotic fashion. It should not happen like it happened in Pakistan, and when there was
Mm.
an attack on Benazir Bhutto the moment she got off the plane. She survived that, but she died later. But
Yes.
so I think all these things have to be taken on board, and there should be. You were talking about that event yesterday, which was
Yes.
called by the. I mean, it was really a shameful example of the differences within the two or three parties that actually fought the election. And the
Mm.
differences about the documentary, no, I did this, you did that, I need the credit, you haven't given me the credit. And can you imagine descending into fisticuffs and slanging and
Yeah.
physical differences in the presence of the acting president, the prime minister, former chief interim advisor, everybody, and
And
diplomats?
diplomats as well.
Yes, and the diplomats had to walk out because they were
Mm.
scared
Mm.
of the physical impact on their own
Mm.
safety. So it's amazing. I think, first of all, it's a whole artificial construct. That is something that we have to accept. This business of saying, even in the press note, oh, our 2nd of July uprising, we all know that this is a completely artificial construct. It was
Mm.
not a spontaneous students' uprising. The world knows that today. It was a well planned, meticulously designed, to use the words of Mohammed Yunus, regime change operation. And he even introduced the mastermind behind the operation. He used this word mastermind. And that
Mm.
mastermind turned out to be the private secretary of Mohammed Yunus, a person called Mahfouz Alam, who is known to be from Hizb ut-Tahrir, which an organization which was banned by Sheikh Hasina. So here
Mm.
you have the Mohammed Yunus, the interim advisor, supposed to be a completely impartial interim advisor, talking about a meticulously designed regime change operation, and
Mm.
having the mastermind as his own private secretary. So
Yeah.
what does it say? What does it say about the events of 2 years ago? And I think that this artificial construct has been completely exposed yesterday. Because instead of the unity that you would expect if it was a genuine uprising, you have these people squabbling for the loaves of office, and
Mm.
the loaves of credit, and not really being interested in Bangladesh at all. So I think that other factor, that this has been an artificial construct, is very evident to the people of Bangladesh. And
Mm.
that is why they're feeling cheated, they're feeling browned off, they're feeling upset. You ask anybody in Bangladesh, you will say, Age bhalo chilo, it was better earlier under Sheikh Hasina.
Mm.
And only she can control us. You know, the extortion that is still there. There was extortion during the interim regime. Everybody thought when the elections take place, everything will settle down, but it hasn't settled down. There's complete extortion, no business activity. Anybody who has
Mm.
a business activity of a few thousand taka or a few lakh taka is forced to pay a hefty percentage of this as extortion to the government in power. So all this is creating a tremendous amount of dissatisfaction in Bangladesh, and this has to be taken on board.
I see. Very interesting observations there, ma'am. In the end, as things stand now, how should Delhi manage the situation? You're saying things in Bangladesh itself are quite fragile. The political consensus itself seems to be quite fragile.
I think government of India has, from the very beginning, quite correctly shown a great deal of patience, strategic patience, I would say, wanting in all sincerity to have good relations with the government of Bangladesh. And this still is there. This is still there. This feeling is still there. We are wanting to have good relations with Bangladesh because for us, it is a people-to-people relationship. So anything that benefits the people of Bangladesh, we want that to continue. We want them to have the best. And that is why we have also reintroduced the visas, and now people are again coming to India, whether for medical tourism or students or pilgrimage or etc. That feeling is still there, and quite correctly it is there. But I think that now, given the events of the last few weeks and days, that we have to see this with the announcement by Sheikh Hasina. And I really think that the process of reconciliation should start, not necessarily just by India. It can be a global attempt. There can be a Truth and Reconciliation Commission, as they had, for example, in South Africa. And this has to bring closure to this kind of constant differences, killings, violence, and all the institutions of democracy are being affected in Bangladesh, and that's not good. India only wants that Bangladesh should be stable, prosperous, and democratic, and we are prepared to help in all these things. And I think that we still would like to continue the dialogue with the government of Bangladesh. We are expressing ourselves in favor of that dialogue, and if the government of Bangladesh takes it up, fine. But so far there's been no response. They've been invited. They haven't come to India. They haven't met the Indian High Commissioner. We've given an invitation now for the BRICS summit. Let's see what happens. But India's sincerity is fully there, and it remains there, and it will remain there. But we cannot hide from what is happening within Bangladesh, from the ground realities in Bangladesh. We have to take that on board. And if Sheikh Hasina is determined to go back, then I think we should work for a reconciliation.
Right, and you're saying that the ground situation has changed much in the last 6 months or so. Ambassador
Yes.
Sikri, thanks so much for joining us on at Times Access.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you very much for joining us. You were watching Access Focus with me, Ananya Dasgupta.